Welcome to part 3 of the Talkabout Social Skills Groups training. In this section, we will look at how to set up and run the groups. Let's look at setting up and running a group. So timescales for the groups. Ideally, the group would run once per week for 30 to 40 minutes, or 2 times a week for 20 minutes if needed. You would choose 12 activities to cover over the whole term that are relevant to the child's needs. You wouldn't do the whole book or all of the resources, as that would likely take you a full academic year. You would only work on exactly what's been identified in the previous assessment section and choose the relevant resources. The size of the group would ideally be between 3 and 6 children. If a group is too small, it can be intense, not interesting, and the children wouldn't be waiting long enough for their turn, so wouldn't be practicing that skill. If the group is too big, the children's attention can be lost and it can be harder to manage. Ideally, it needs to be something that they can take ownership of, so their own group. Encourage the children to choose a group name to create that sense of ownership. Set ground rules together, so you might want to get them to create a poster about the rules to hang up each week. Have the same consistent members each time. Children with similar needs that are likely to gel, similar ages, with similar interests where possible. Create a safe place where they can share and discuss their feelings and thoughts and different ideas. You might want to include children with social communication difficulties to also benefit from the group, or a child who will be a good social communication role model, but you will need to obtain consent from parents and inform them why they're out of class. But this is not necessary, as the adult can be the good role model in the group. So the accommodation for the group would ideally be a regular room that is quiet, where you can shut the door and hang up a do not disturb sign. A private and safe space where they can share concerns and ideas. And we're all aware that this can be difficult in a school, so you could also use a quiet, closed off space if you're able to. Running a group. The idea of including the children in a group is a more effective, enjoyable, and relatable way to teach and practice social skills. Doing this in a group helps to generalise, as it's more like a real life situation than any one-to-one work with an adult would be. Lots of skills are practiced in a group: peer interaction, observation, turn taking, learning, and opportunities to learn new skills in this safe environment within the group, and it may generate some friendships. You would have materials to use each week that are included within your packs that we will send you out. You refer to the group name and the rules at the beginning of the group. Hang up your do not disturb sign on the door. You can give a different child the opportunity and responsibility to do that each week. Use the cue cards included in the pack for the rules of good listening, good sitting, and good turn taking. The format of the group sessions always runs in the same way. So you start with an introduction activity, which is generally a group cohesion activity. You ask each child how they're feeling, and then you use an introduction to the session theme. You move on to a main activity, and then you finish with closing activities, which include summing up and another group cohesion activity to finish. So the group cohesion activity, for starting, is a fun, stress-free activity that involves everyone and sets the scene. It can be linked to the topic for the group and should be used to start and finish every session. So for an example would be an add an action game that could be a quick settling in game if you're short on time. The How Are You Feeling activity uses the cue cards provided in the packs. There are different levels of this activity and a couple of are shown on the slide. So for example, you might have two different emotions to choose from. Are you feeling happy or sad? You might have a range of emotions to choose from, like the ones on the screen, or the children can think of their own emotion to describe how they're feeling. So the idea behind this is to support different levels. And next would be an introduction to the session theme. It's important to highlight what theme you're focusing on during each group session. So for example, you might say, today we're talking about body language, and we would explain what body language means. So something like, we use our bodies to communicate. We can tell what other people mean by how they move their bodies. And you would introduce the theme like that before you play a main activity and go through one of the main resources based on that theme. Your main activity would be focused around the theme for that session. So for example, if your theme is body language, a main activity idea could be building bodies. So the children create a man from body parts and discuss which part of our body can be used to communicate. Again, you can pitch these activities at different levels. So for example, the children could colour in the bodies and parts on a worksheet, or the children could draw their own examples. You might want to talk about some of the larger parts of the body, such as arms, legs, and head. And you could make this activity more difficult by focusing on really small parts, like clothes that people wear, how someone moves their eyes or their mouth. Before the group cohesion activity, to finish, sum up the session by discussing the theme that you've covered today. So just a brief 5-minute activity, and examples of summing up activities could be to discuss what the theme was and see if anybody can remember, wants to make a suggestion. Everyone could say one thing that they have learnt during the group today. Everyone could say their favourite part of today's group, or everyone can say what they might think about that week. And then you would choose an activity according to how much time you have as another group cohesion activity to finish off with something fun. The overall aim is to start working on and practicing identified areas of difficulty within the group and progressing that to using the skills within the classroom and wider environments and everyday situations. This can be difficult for children to do and may require ongoing prompts and support from teaching staff. To help with generalising skills to the classroom, some children may benefit from reward charts. Some schools use dojos or house points, maybe stickers or something that the child is motivated by. Whatever works for the child and the class. Visual prompts, such as good looking, listening and sitting. Rating scales to develop awareness of volume, for example. So there's a visual example of that on the slide. Creating opportunities to practice using the social skills. Look at the social routines and consider opportunities for practicing skills. Praise must be specific and immediate. So for example, I can see you're listening because you're looking. Well done. Reflecting on your own social communication in various situations. review what has worked well, what could be better, and reflect on the skills practiced and review what you've worked on. Once you have completed the group and the resources, if you need more activities from a particular area, for example, eye contact, please contact your speech and language therapist. Or you can look at purchasing the Talkabout books if your school don't already have them. There is a book specifically for developing self-awareness and self-esteem, which contains additional resources if you need to continue this area before progressing on to the 4 areas of the main wheel. The main book with a mix of topics across the 4 areas of the main wheel is the green one, Developing Social Skills. There is also a Talkabout DVD, which includes video clips for all skills taught within Talkabout. And there is a Talkabout for Teenagers book, which looks at further developing social skills, self-esteem and friendship skills for older children. There is a website link on the slide where you can buy the books. They cost about £40 per book and contain a year worth of resources. Or you can also choose to buy a whole pack of pre-made laminated and colour resources. The Alex Kelly website also does talk about board games and picture cards. You can buy these games and picture cards from the same website. So the Talkabout game is something that you might wish to consider as an additional activity to play within your group. The board game is a journey through the week where a player will encounter a number of different social skills tasks that need to be completed in order to get to the end of the week. The purpose of the game is to work together, and therefore there is no winner. Once a player has got to the middle of the board, their role is to help the others to get there too. So it's about working together and communication skills. A good way to use this would be at the end of term to recap some of the things your group has learned. However, it can also be played at the end of the 5 different levels of Talkabout, and the challenges get increasingly harder as you progress through each of the Talkabout stages, from easier self-awareness challenges to harder ones based on conversation skills or assertiveness as you progress along the wheel, for example. There are also 2 sets of cards that you can buy. One is a collection of group cohesion games, which can be used to enhance a social skills activity or as a warm-up and finishing game. They're all quick, fun and easy to play. And the other is a specifically focused set for self-awareness, which is that level 1 before you move on to the wheel. So part 3, in summary, we've covered setting up a group, which includes the timescales for the group, the setting up, the size and the membership, and the accommodation for the group. We've covered running the group, so the format of the sessions, which includes the introduction, the main and the closing activities, and then generalising those skills from the groups to the classroom.